Well, good evening and welcome back to the Seasiders podcast, the Friday night preview show. We're live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter to bring you all the pre-match news ahead of Blackpool's Sky Bet League One fixture away at Charlton, which will take place on Saturday at 3 p.m. British Standard Time. So if you're watching abroad, that's when you need to watch the game, and hopefully the Seasiders can get back to, like I say, playing football and also try and pick up the first two back-to-back away wins of the season. It would be fantastic if we could do that with I'm sure, 19 games to go, including this one. But we'll get into the show. We have a special guest on our panel this evening. But first of all, the man who joins us every week, it's Tom Main. Tom, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Good to be back and look forward to actually watching us play football.
Yeah, it'd be great. Disappointing on Tuesday, which we're not going to dive into, but hopefully we can again push on because the signs are looking good for the Seasiders. We're also joined by Sean McGinlay. Sean, welcome to the Seasiders podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Cheers.
Good. How are things with you? Obviously, starting a bit of your professional career in sports journalism.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I think it's one way to get into Bloomfield Road during a pandemic, I guess. But it's been good getting around and about the grounds in the northwest, so I can't really complain.
No, that's why I took up photography, mate, so I can go inside the grounds and not worried about the pictures. No, I'm only joking. But how have you found it? Obviously, working during this pandemic, it's been hard for people all over the world to not be working, but for people like us who are fortunate to go there, it's just nice to actually watch live football and not an eye follow.
Yeah, exactly. You sort of get a different view of the game as well from that perspective, seeing a lot of the off the ball work that we do as well. But obviously, I've not seen what the norm is in terms of how the press works. So it's sort of my norm is masks in the ground, temperature checks as you get there, sort of trying to get used to that really. And then obviously when we go back, that will be my new normal.
I know it's going to be strange actually working with being fans in the ground, but with obviously recent news, I'm pretty sure that's it's not in the too distant future, is it? So looks like we've got Coach Critchley joining us in the chat as ever. So it's great to have him part of that. So can't stay long. Hotel room has Disney Plus. So someone's obviously got their priorities right this evening. But Sean, what we like to do on the kind of Seasiders podcast with any guest, whether it's Blackpool or the opponents, is get them to talk about how they got support in Blackpool and if there's any memories that stand out to you whilst at your time watching the Tangerines.
Yeah, so my first game, I think it was 2004, actually maybe 2006, actually. It was LDV Vans trophy and we won 6-3 after extra time. Huddersfield went down to 10 men, there was 9 goals in the game, so I think if I didn't come away from that wanting to go back again, I think it was probably in the wrong sport, to be quite honest. I don't know why, but I always go back to my favourite game being, just because it encapsulates everything about Blackpool, was the 7-2 defeat to Watford away from home, 2-0 up at half-time, everything looking rosy, and then we go and concede 5 goals in 20 minutes and then losing 7-2. So I just think everyone obviously goes on about the Notts Forest semi-final away. Like, I think that encapsulates everything that was good about Blackpool. That was a good trip.
No, I must admit, I didn't go. I've never actually been to Watford. It's a ground I need to tick off after the is it 92. I think I'm on 64, 65. So plenty more grounds to go. But also, obviously, part of your media stuff, you've done some work with the Up the Mighty Pool podcast and done shows with Keith Southern and Stephen Dobby. What was that like for you to speak to, I guess, some of your heroes?
Yeah, exactly. I know the lads have been doing a lot of work recently and really sort of upping their game, and it's a really good platform for Seaside and stuff. There's a lot of obviously good writing on there as well on the site as well. We did a podcast with the Blackpool ladies manager, talking about how the women's team were impacted obviously by the pandemic and generally how they get on, because we don't hear a lot about the Blackpool women's game. I think it's important that we showcase that side of things and try and showcase a different aspect, I suppose, to Blackpool, because obviously it's a lot wider than just the first team that we tend to watch. So there's been some good stuff, and I can only see it sort of moving on from there.
Yeah, it's great to see them doing interviews with players as well. I definitely recommend heading over to their channel and watching a few of the interviews. Stephen Dobby one, the most recent one, funnily enough, talks about one of his, I think, favourite goals being against Watford away. So tune out and check out that one. But obviously we're here to talk about the game tomorrow. Charlton Athletic, a side who started off the season on fire, Tom, scoring goals for fun, keeping plenty clean sheets, but most recently they've struggled a little bit. A few players came in January, but now probably the right time for the Seasiders to play them, isn't it?
Yeah, we're always that team that plays the team, like when we played Ipswich and we didn't turn up. But I think we've alluded to just pre-show that they've got the quality in their team to be a really dangerous side, and we saw that at Bloomfield Road when they were pretty relentless with some players as well. So they're in a bit of sticky form. So fingers crossed we can go there and sort of upset them, because their home form has been, well, shambolic, to be fair, this season so far.
Sean, 2 wins in the last 6 league games for Charlton. Not really I guess playoff promotion form, despite them sitting 9th in the league table. Did you hear that, Sean? Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, they've sort of lost out as well. Not really being part of the side. Obviously, he's now left to go to Stoke, and he had a lot of goals. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's in and out, but we'll get there.
Stoke in January. They lost a lot of goals through Alfie Doherty leaving. They've got Chuks Aneke, who scores a lot of goals, Andrew Shinnie as well, providing a lot of assists as well. So they've got the quality on their day. But whether that day comes against us is another question, because they have been very hit and miss this season.
Just looking at Tom, some of the recent performances or results for them. Lost 2-1 at home to Burton, where the Valley's normally a bit of a fortress for the Addicks. A 1-1 draw away at Fleetwood, despite taking the lead, I think, in the first 10 minutes. Beat Rochdale away from home, which is always a tough place to go. And then lost 3-1 to Portsmouth at home as well. So, like I said, it's probably the best time to play them. But on the flip side of things, that their manager Lee Bowie will definitely be wanting a reaction from his players, knowing that they've got games against Wigan and I think Northampton coming up.
Yeah, they've got some key games coming up, and I think we're one of those, because we win tomorrow, then we can start to push on a little bit, especially after last week's game. They're 18th at home, and third away, so you couldn't get any more polar opposite in terms of form and how bad they've been at home. And I don't know why that is, to be honest with you. Same set of players, slightly different circumstances, obviously being away from home, but yeah, a good as time as any. You don't want to go when they're winning 9 in a row at home, so a good a time as any. We get a goal, and hopefully their confidence will be deflated, and we can push on with the confidence that we've got at the moment.
Sean, I'm coming to you next. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about the game. Unlike Blackpool, Charlton did play on Tuesday night. Rain didn't affect their match, but a new player that's coming in January was Jaden Stockley, on loan from Preston. I think it was 3 goals in his last 3 appearances for the Addicks, but he gave them a lead like they did against Fleetwood. But then Charlton were penned back with a goal from Mike Fandop Talum, and then an own goal by Ben Watson. Again, is it the playing at home when you've got no fans there to really push them on, Charlton? Do you think that will suit Blackpool going to them when they've not got the crowd maybe supporting them and pushing them forward, because they're so close, those playoff places, that they could be in the 12th man on that game tomorrow if fans are allowed in the ground?
Yeah, well, obviously you mentioned there Jaden Stockley, come from Preston, as you said. He's always been sort of a physical presence up top, and I think that's what they're aiming for there. Probably direct approach through to him through the channels, trying to find space in the wide areas, getting the ball into the box for Stockley. He's always going to be a threat in the air. He was the same at Aberdeen as well, before he moved across to Preston. And I think, because to be honest, Charlton fans have always sort of seemed to me to be quite harsh on the players at home. So if anything, it's probably done them a favour in terms of that. But maybe potentially they need that kick up the backside to get themselves going. But it just seems to be that they're good sporadically, and that there's individuals that can make those moments happen. But as a unit and as a whole team, and the way they set up and play, I don't think really they have that formation or tactical structure like we have with Neil Critchley. I just think it's a lot more reliant on individual moments and individual players.
I think I agree with what you've said there, and having watched them from behind a camera lens, it seemed to be, can we get it to Stockley and try and build off him? So I think if Blackpool can really prevent the ball reaching the striker, that Blackpool have got a chance. But Tom, coming to you, you look at some of the plays they've got in the team. Chuks we've talked about. Ben Amos, really good goalkeeper. Nathan Harness has been trying to look at here. You look at some players. Liam Miller on loan from Liverpool. Oshalaja is a tall beast of a centre half, which fans will see tomorrow. And players like Andrew Shinnie dropping down from the Championship from Luton, recently joined. I'm trying to think of the right back. I can't find his name now. Marcus Madison's gone. It's gone his name, but he's Chris Gunter. That's the one. He's in there. Ben Watson. They've got players, Tom, that should be able to get Charlton out of this league, but just something's not right there, is it, at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's a catalyst for success, but it can have the opposite effect when you've got that much experience in your team and it's not going well. You look at some of the players and you think, wow, they should be top two and have the experience there to sort of lead the way. But if it's not going right, then it can have the opposite effect, like they're found at home. So for me, I think they will kick on. There's still a long way to go, and I don't think Bowyer is a bad manager. I don't think he's excellent. I think he's learning such as Critchley is, but he's certainly got the nous and sort of probably the bite to give those players what they need to go up. And as you've just said there, Shinnie and a few other players that have just dropped down, and that's certainly going to add a bit of spice to their team and some energy as well, because Doherty, who they lost, run us ragged at Bloomfield Road, and they missed that as soon as he's gone. So yeah, we'll see tomorrow. For me, it's probably, although their home form, it's probably one of the hardest games we're going to have, because they really are going to want to improve. And we've just come back from beating Portsmouth, and yes, we didn't play Tuesday, but if we can go in there with the same momentum and the thought process, and for me, Ballard at the back commanding sort of the team to push forward, I'm really interested to see how sort of tomorrow pans out. So yeah, it's going to be a decent game for me.
I'll come back to you, Tom, but Adam Clark's just left a comment. I can't see Sean on the screen there, but Adam says, I think you've got to remember that we've played against great teams like Hull and Peterborough. We need to understand what we are doing, but look at the draws we've had, not many, so things are looking good. I completely agree. And Tom, looking at Charlton again, who do you think their key player is going to be? I know Blackpool have pointed out Chuks Aneke. You can go with him if you want and go the safe option, but who do you think that their player is going to be that Blackpool fans can watch out for tomorrow?
Well, Stockley and Shinnie for me. Shinnie is someone, like I said, is going to add a bit of that bit of magic that we missed at the start of the season, and certainly maybe create something for Charlton, and hopefully make things happen for them. So he's a player that interests me. And you said you got the experience. I don't think Watson will start. I know he came off the bench the other day, didn't he? But they've just that experience and how we deal with that. But I think when we watched Daniels against Blackpool when he plays for Shrewsbury, and we played for Saturday, that aura they give on the ball certainly helps teams out. I don't think obviously Daniels did enough for Portsmouth, but he's certainly one of their more standout players. So when you've got players like that in your team added with the youth, then it's a recipe for success most of the time. So we've got to watch out for that, but we've also got a lot of energy in midfield that can cope with that as well. So we need to be on our game.
Sean, before I come to you and ask who you think the key player for Charlton is going to be, I'm going to read a comment from Steve here. Steve, thanks for the comment, and same with Adam. Steve says, results show that we've played better against better teams this season, so hopefully we will get a result tomorrow. Come on, you Pool. So again, something we'll come on to later with Blackpool's recent form against those sides. But Sean, who do you think the players to watch tomorrow from a Blackpool perspective, looking at the opponents?
Yeah, well, I think Jake Forster-Caskey in midfield's a really good player. I'd probably compare him, if we're looking at how closely linked he is to one of our players, I'd probably say Kenny Dougal is sort of the link man between the defence and the attack. At the end of the day, you're not going to get Andrew Shinney and players like that on the ball if you've not got that link man that's going to get the original possession to play it through. So he's the main man, and he's very good at intercepting play as well in the middle of the park, and that's sort of he's the main man that will lead the press in the central areas. But just coming on to the sort of the way Charlton play, and we're seeing we play better against better teams. Mm-hmm. I'd probably link these closely to Ipswich in terms of how they sort of are at the moment. You've got those players in that team that are capable of doing things, and as Ipswich showed against us, you still have to turn up and do the basics right and do the right things in the right areas at the right time. Else these teams will still punish you regardless of their form at the moment. So we definitely need to be at our A game and playing the right way to be able to pick up the points. We can't simply just turn up against teams like this and expect to go into this.
Do you think the result last weekend will help the players, one, know they can go out there and get a result, what is a tough ground to go to anyway, despite there being no fans in there, but two, knowing that they can get results against the teams of Hull City, Peterborough, Portsmouth, Oxford, they played well, Blackpool. Do you think that will help the Blackpool players, especially mindset going into the game tomorrow?
I think so, because if you think about the other games that we played, and when we won those games, we had a full-strength side. We had CJ Hamilton and we had those players in, and to do it without those players in the side, without Gretterson as well, it gives that squad now that's fit at the moment the confidence that they can do it without these players. I guess we've been culpable earlier on in the season of relying on CJ Hamilton to give these moments in games to pull us over the line, and to do it without players like him shows that we are capable of, on our day, capable of beating anyone in the league, and this should be no different.
Tim Fielding, aka Stato, in the Fielding manner, said that Blackpool, and I'm assuming it means Blackpool, are averaging 1.73 points per game, discounting the first 7 games where we were all over the place, which I'm sure we'll agree with, but definitely a learning curve for Blackpool. I'll try and stick up for him like I did at the start of the season. But again, with the defence and with those points, 1.75 gets you an average, I think, 76 points if you can maintain that. And when you actually look at those stats, 2 points per game gets you promotion, Tom, or near enough guaranteed playoff places. So we're not too far off, are we, really, being that complete package? But this season was always going to be one where bringing in 19 players, it was always going to be a season where we're going to gel and hopefully push on in the next season. But I don't see why we can't do it this season, though.
For me, it's the consistency of the team selection and how brave he is in playing sort of the same system most of the time. So when we've had good results, we haven't gone out and played 4-3-3, and we played Ipswich, and then we just changed the system, made different changes, and we look like a completely different side. Personally, I don't think when he changes it that much, it should have that much of an impact of the team. But with Blackpool, it does this season. So if we have any chance of going up, I'll stick up for Tim 3-5-2 or 4-4-2, depending on how we sort of play. It has to be the way we play and not worry about anyone else for the rest of the season. And we, in my opinion, we've got enough for the playoffs. Whether I think we'll fall away because of the contributing factors such as, postponements and the build-up of fixtures and team selection is another question. But if we continue to play 4-4-2 and we continue to keep our players fit and players start to come back, we've got the quality and depth for them to step up and do it. So you think it's a win every other game, or nip away at the draws away from home and keep our home form up, then it's a matter of fact, if we keep the home form up, we will be in the playoffs. Yeah,
definitely. I'm just seeing AMAC's got a comment in saying, what's our record at the Valley? Pretty poor, AMAC, to be fair. If you're looking at, I think the last win was...
that for a reason.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I thought, a good point. And I think
it's 70s,
Christians mentioned it. Sorry, go on, Tom.
No, you're absolutely right, mate. Yeah, I think it's the 70s. When I looked, is the last sort of win the Valley. We've had a few draws there. But yeah, it's not a happy hunting ground for us.
No, it's not great. But just looking at the stats whilst we're on it here, the games between the two sides, which we might come to in a bit more detail later on. Charlton have won 19 games. There's been 16 draws, and Blackpool overall have won 30 games in all competitions. So the stats in that respect think, okay, Blackpool can go and win this game, but results at the Valley haven't been there for Blackpool. So it's kind of a hit and miss one. And we'll come to everyone's score predictions later on. So if you're going to get them in, we'll try and find the comments later. We're going to also do a team selection later in the show. But I'm sure, Sean, you'll have your preferred starting 11, and so will Tom. And I might play it safe and go same as last Saturday in that one. But coming to you, Sean, before I let Tom come in, what can Blackpool do tomorrow to go and I'm going to say cause an upset against a side that are ninth in the table? What can Blackpool do?
I think it's important that Ellis Sims sort of again makes up for Gary Medine not being there, occupying the centre halves. I know when we're at the games, Chris Maxwell's very vocal to Ellis Sims, coaching him through the game all the time, telling him to occupy the centre half, stay on the last man every single minute of the game. You'll hear Maxwell's voice to Sims. So he's really important because obviously Jerry Yates is going to have to occupy the wide areas at times and sit sort of out wide to sort of stop them building out from the back, which they're trying to do. They're trying to get the ball out wide as quickly as possible. You're going to probably have Grant Ward in. He's going to cover the space on the right side. So it's important that when Sims gets the ball, he holds it up well and he brings others into play. So I think he's the key. And then obviously we've got to sit tight at the back as well. Dan Ballard's in. So at the end of the day, your confidence there shoots up completely. And I don't think there's that much of a threat of them playing in behind. They're not the paciest team in the world. Yeah. So where James Husband is culpable sometimes of being caught in behind, I don't think there's a threat of that at all. So as long as we keep the play in front of ourselves, I don't think there'll be a problem, to be honest.
Tom, what can Blackpool do then tomorrow?
Yeah, just touching what Sean said, they are a wide team. You remember at Bloomfield Road, I don't know if everyone remembers that horrible sort of quick red card for Husband, but it was a very good birthday for me. But they got the ball. I think they set up 3-4-3, don't they? Almost three centre halves and then the wing back sort of kicking on. So that's where their wide sort of threat comes from. So I think if we contain them in the middle, I think Stuart's stats speak for themselves since he's come in and he hasn't played football for God knows how long, and he's come in and he's again transformed our side as much as Dougal did when he first started. And Dougal seems to, I think we discussed Tuesday, you don't drop Dougal after his performance against Portsmouth. He's almost back to his sort of best and he seemed to have shaken off the fatigue. So for me, you've got to use those two centre midfielders in the core of the team with Ballard and Husband because they both were cracking against Portsmouth as well. So contain them in the midfield and just we have to take our chances when we get the opportunity. And for me, Jerry Yates is probably the most important player in our team for that because of just what he did against Northampton and what he's done many times this season in terms of just making something out of nothing, which brings me on to my next point, which was the Portsmouth match. We contained them relatively well. They didn't really have clear-cut opportunities. There was, a couple of goal threats, but what Jerry Yates did against Portsmouth, Sean, you saw the goal as well. I think we've all seen it back, but he's on the halfway line as he's got fouled, and to drive onto the defence like that, do the little shimmy and finish the way he did. For me, that was as good as the Northampton goal because he can make something happen out of nothing, and that got us 3 points. And it was so vital, that bit of skill and individual brilliance, and that's why for me Jerry Yates is going to be the differential tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I think I'll come in here if you want. I've obviously I've seen some of the highlights and seen what Yates did. And first and foremost, we don't normally give a lot of credit to referees, but I think the referee on that occasion did really well to let the play go on. His assistant was waving his flag ferociously on the sideline, but I'm so glad he did that because we just see Yates' determination there, and we saw it against Northampton. It was late in the game, and the game's probably won by the time the ball's down that end of the pitch. But for him to actually put in the effort and work rate was superb. And again, he seems to be up for these games, doesn't he, Sean? Where he maybe doesn't get a lot of the ball and the service that he would like to as a striker, but in terms of what he does off the ball, as we've seen at a few Blackpool games now ourselves, that he will work so hard. He also talks to Sims about when closing down, kind of, right, if I'm here, where should you be? And it gets working. So he's going to be a key player, isn't he, tomorrow? And hopefully he can be the deciding factor between Blackpool getting 3 points.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned there about him talking to players through the game and coaching players through the game. He's non-stop. It's pretty ridiculous, the energy the guy has. And we saw it at the start of the season. That energy hasn't stopped. It hasn't changed from minute one. It's just that the goals have come alongside with it now. But as you say, it's his just relentless pressure. And I think as well, Sims needs a player like that alongside him. I think he does at times look a bit lost. in spells of the game where we're on the back foot, for example. He doesn't quite know where to go, and it's having those voices in the team that are really helping him along. I think tomorrow it's another big game for him and Yates together, and I just think that they're a really good partnership at the end of the day. And to have that, and then knowing that we've still got Gary Medine to come back, that's top. That's a top sides front pairing sort of thing compared to the rest of the league. I don't really see three strikers that are all as capable as they are.
Yeah, I come to you, Sean. I think we haven't won back-to-back away games all season. I think tomorrow's the biggest opportunity as any, especially playing, Charlton in the form they are. Do you think we can make it back-to-back wins? And just touching upon your Ellis Sims comment, do you think they're very similar in the way they play? Because I think we touched upon it in the pod after the Portsmouth win. Sims seems to want to play in front of the goal, so does Yates. But Medine loves playing with his back to goal and sort of feeding the other players around him. So do you think they're too similar in the way they work, or do you think they are generally going to be a good partnership? For me, Ellis Sims hasn't produced anywhere near to the quality I think people are alluding to. He did get 2 goals against Wigan, but they were pretty simple goals. But you're at the game, you might see it a bit differently. What's your true sort of thoughts on Ellis Sims and the way they work together?
I think he has moments where he fades. I think he never sort of has it for a persistent game. He'll have his moments, like I say, and I think they do work well together, especially in the defensive side of things. A lot of off-the-ball work sort of goes unnoticed, obviously, if you're watching on the TV, but Jerry Yates and Ellis Sims together really block off that passing lane between the defence and midfield for the opposition. And I think it adds a lot more sort of freedom for our midfielders to sit in the right positions themselves, knowing that the work rate of the two strikers is covering a lot of the ground that they essentially should be doing generally anyway. But as you say, he's still young at the end of the day. It's his first sort of foray into professional football. It's bound to happen where he's going to be a bit sporadic with his games, but hopefully it comes more consistently for him. Yeah,
no, I agree. And yeah, I think to start as well, I think to come in and start from playing in the academy to first team football, I think he's done a reasonable job, but I think we were expecting something magic to happen as soon as he sort of steps onto the pitch. And after those 2 goals, kind of didn't do him a favour because we're expecting him to score every time he's on the pitch. But I think without him, especially with Medine being out, we lose a lot of games because he helps with the structure and the way we set up. So that's a really good point. We've got, after this, we've got 4 games out of 5, 2 back-to-back home games. With the postponement on Tuesday, how do you think the build-up of fixtures is going to affect sort of the season and sort of the build-up of fixtures? You think it's going to do us any good, or do you think it's going to be detriment to our season in terms of playing that many games in a short space of time?
I think it depends, really. It's sort of the case of if we get our players back fit that we've got out at the moment, then we're going to have a stronger squad for those games. But ultimately, those players coming back, do they really want to be playing that amount of games, 2 games a week, every single week without fail? And we could have had a couple of breaks based on the postponements. It's you win some, you lose some, but ultimately, if you have got that extra quality back, like CJ Hamilton in the last stages of the season, I mean, that's invaluable regardless of if he's on 80, 90% or if he's on 100%, he's going to have a couple of moments in the game that he could change it for us. So I think the important thing is that the momentum carries on while we are playing games and that these postponements don't affect that, because I think, as you've alluded to, back-to-back wins away from home, we've not really had that. And we've had those moments where we've been going into a game and we're like, right, this is where we really kick on now. And then we've not done it, like the Ipswich game, for example. Yeah. And I think tomorrow's a massive chance for us to really prove that we are capable of really kicking on at the back end of the season. And I think once we get past this one, then I think there's full confidence that we can do it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I was going to come in. Yeah, so I probably worded it wrong on the sheet, actually. With the back-to-back games, we've got obviously Charlton, then back-to-back home games with Crewe and then Wimbledon, and then an away game, then Fleetwood Burton, an away game, and then Peterborough, Plymouth at home. It's great to see. And then later on, Accrington versus Sunderland. And then obviously finish against Joey Barton's Bristol Rovers, which I'm sure will be good. Shame fans can't be in there because I know we'll be getting stick in it. He loves that, Joey. But yeah, I think it's going to be important, those home games, especially. What did I think? Was it 11 out of 19, I think, are there. And for me, we look good at home recently. We seem to know how to grind out results. We seem to look like we can cope with teams when they're on top, especially that Rochdale game. I thought they could have easily nicked an equaliser just with the threats and the constant attacking from them. But I just think we're a bit smarter in games now. We're not creating many chances we would like to with the players we've got, but we've got to think about where we were at the start of the season. And this season's so unique compared to others. It's Saturday, Tuesday. I think the only one where it's not Saturday, Tuesday is Easter weekend. So we've got to take that into consideration when the teams swap in and plays aren't at 100% every time, because that Saturday to Tuesday, week in, week out, can take its toll. And I just hope that what they're doing away from the training ground, recovery-wise, and the pitch is great, because we have got a chance. And if we can keep this momentum going, I don't see why we can't sneak in the playoff places. I personally think it's a season too early with the players that we've kind of got and where they were at the start of the campaign. But I just don't see why we can't make the most of it. And I think as fans, we've got to back them. And whether if we lose tomorrow, it's not the end of the world. We go again in the next game. So we just got to do our bit as fans as well to keep cheering them on and keep positive on social media, because as we've seen, players thrive off that. And if we can play our part in Blackpool's run, who knows, we might have the perfect 10 again like we did in 2007.
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point. If you cast your mind back, and like I said, I've held my hands up many times saying if we continue the way we are, Critchley probably isn't the right man for the job. But I think the appointment of Calderwood and the way they work together is really sort of helped us out. And if you cast your mind back, like Tim said, to the first 7 games, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was always going to be quite difficult, but the games like at Lincoln at home and Wimbledon away, and you just watch this team and you like can't sort of represent them with Blackpool. And I said to you, we had no character, we had no sort of identity, as a team. And you watch us now, and then on the whole, there is the odd blip such as Ipswich, but you kind of believe we are going to score. We're not going to concede at the moment, and I think we've signed really well. Gretteson's an incredible signing. Although he hasn't played a lot. Ballard is sensational. Dougal, Stewart. So we have made some poor signings, or not maybe up to scratch we want, but we've also made some incredible signings for League One. So I believe it's too early, as maybe a season too early, but I also believe we could be back watching us in the Championship with full stadium, and there's no reason why we couldn't cope with that. With the quality of football, if we sign right, and we all know we've got a generous owner, and we sign, and we can sign well, and there's no reason why we can't do it. And League One, although it's got some big teams in there's no reason why we can't be one of those big teams. And you mentioned earlier it could be classed as an upset, but I think we get lost in the quality of the league, and there are some big names in there like your Portsmouths and your Peterboroughs, etc. But we went to Peterborough and we absolutely dominated them, and we have got that quality. So yeah, tomorrow, if we go there and win, dare I say it, 2-3-0, or maybe grind out a 1-0, we are showing what we can do as a team and what potential we have. It's 19 games, it's a lot of points.
Yeah. I was just coming in before, I'm just looking at the league table now as we're talking. I know we're sat in 14th, but we've only played 26 games. Shrewsbury are 2 places below us, played 27. But you look at teams going to keep playing games and having a little break, where if Blackpool can get on a run, Sean, as everyone knows that momentum's key in football. It works both ways. Momentum and lose games and go on 8 games where you don't win. But on the other side, if you pick up 2 or 3 results, it can lead to 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 as Blackpool fans know. But that 26, and I think someone made a comment that Blackpool don't do well when they've had a break. Whether Tuesday your class is a week off, because it's not, you would normally play Saturday. I don't know what your thoughts are, Sean. Do you think that we just kind of thingy after a week, or that when we do play games, we just seem to be in a bit of a rhythm?
I think the problem comes obviously because you're prepared to play a specific opponent, and then at the last minute you're then not playing that specific opponent, and then your plans are changing again. And I think it's just, whether that affects your performance or not, I don't know, but it's an irritant. It's like something that can be, you want it to be avoided, but it isn't, and it's something that's there that we just sort of have to deal with. But your point about winning smarter is the key, I think, because there's going to come games where we only win 1-0, say, and we grind it out. I think Rochdale was the key for that. I think if you were a fan watching that game the last 20 minutes, it was really nervy, but when you actually look back on it, we set a low block really well. We limited them to absolutely nothing in the last 20 minutes, and Rochdale came away. Their expected goal stat was like 0.45, which is unheard of for Rochdale this season. Rochdale will score a bag of goals no matter who they're playing. And for us, I think that was the second lowest expected goals number in the entire campaign. So for us to be able to do that against teams like Rochdale, albeit obviously they're not great at the back, but they're great going forward. If we can grind out results like that, there's no reason why it can't continue. But I think we missed a trick with Doncaster, obviously, because I think it was really a perfect time to play them because they've not been on the best run of form, and I don't know where they're going to go from here. But ultimately, that was probably a missed opportunity. But ultimately, keeping on that consistent run is really key. And I think we do have the players now that will have the mentality to grind those sort of results out.
Yeah, I think obviously we've talked briefly about CJ coming back, and Tom, I'll come to you. Do you think he'll be on the bench tomorrow, or do you think it's that game too early for him to come in? Like I said, there's so many games to come. We don't want to rush him back, do we? Because last thing we want is him to run down that right wing as fast as he can do and pull another hamstring. It's
been out a long time.
It feels like it, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it's been a while. So, yeah, it's... if he's back on the grass, he's been running for a while. We know he's been doing some light sort of jogging initially a few weeks ago, and we've seen him in the inside training videos kicking the ball, chasing players down. For me, if he's back and he's comes to some sort of fitness and he's running on the pitch kicking a ball, then he needs to be on the bench at some point. Granted, he shouldn't start, but if he's there, he should be on the bench tomorrow to give that not only him a boost in his self-confidence, but when do you know what's the right time with a hamstring injury? It's probably the most difficult injury to understand, isn't it? In terms of each player is different and how they deal with them. And I think if he's kicking a ball and run on the pitch, we've got to have him on the bench eventually. Tomorrow, hopefully, is that just to see him there. Do you know what I mean? Because we missed so much.
Sean, do you agree that just? Again, I don't want to single out one player because it's a team sport at the end of the day, but someone like CJ who has the ability to take on players with ease, goes past them, put a decent ball on the box, should we say, maybe one area that he can work on going forward in his career. But do you think that his presence will give those in the team a bit of a boost if he comes on, that we know is right, we've got a chance here, we can put those balls in behind now, we know we've got pace? How influential do you think he can be in this, say, second half of the season for us?
Well, obviously, as we've mentioned with a few other teams, there's match winners are sort of what you need at the back end of the season, because you're going to have games where you're not firing, you're not playing the best football, you're a bit sloppy in possession, and then you know that you've got that player there that can make something out of nothing. We've got that with Yates, we've got that with Medina. I think CJ Hamilton's the other player that can do that. I think the thing with obviously his hamstring injury, the way he plays, he's the sort of he's randomly going from a stop-start to complete sprint out. I imagine that I don't know, but you'd think he probably has to take a bit longer to recover before we start chancing him. But I mean, if we can bring him out for little laps of honour, so like 3 minutes to go, 2-0 up or what have you, then that'd be great. It's sort of at the end of the day, you get the game finished, you can sort of get him on for 10 minutes or what have you, and just sort of slowly build it up. But I think if we're wanting promotion, I think you think about playoff games and things like that. If we end up getting there, then he's the man that you want to be in the team.
Gareth, perfect time for your comment. I don't know why it keeps going on and off, but Gareth, perfect time for your comment to come up on the screen. We'll get the winner at Wembley. That would be mark this comment, take a screenshot, and we'll see if it happens come May. And we're all there in the sunshine end of Wembley Stadium, enjoying our day out there. And just coming to players off the bench, and before we move on to the manager section and our team selections and score predictions, I just want to talk here. I think Amax got it in as well. Apter, I think it's Rob Apter, isn't it, his name? Going to get a decent amount of time on the pitch. I think the lad, if he's given a chance, will score goals for fun. Youngster has nothing to fear. And then also Righty 2211 says, I think it's Steve, sorry, it flicked. Would like to see Brad Holmes on the bench as well. And these players, Tom, I guess they're going to get the chance at some point, aren't they? But they are still young lads at the end of the day. And Neil Critchley knows how to look after youngsters. And he's not just going to throw them in for the sake of it. They have to be ready, don't they, for what's the test ahead, because they're playing against lads at the same age where if they jump to the first team, they're going to be playing the likes players who are 30, 35, and it's a completely different ball game if they're thrown into it.
I agree and disagree, maybe controversial, but for me, if you see them, they are naturally incredible goal scorers, finishers, and they can run at players. And I asked the question on, I think that after the Portsmouth game, what's the difference between Ellis Sims, apart from his Premiership Academy, than Brad Holmes, if you're going to give someone the opportunity? Granted, maybe not start him, and he's got that little bit more experience in terms of playing matches, but Holmes is he's on fire. He's literally on fire. So you either bring him on, even at 1-1, he will run at players. Rob Apter showed against Wigan. He got his set piece was brilliant for Ellis Sims's goal. And previous to that, 3 or 4 times, he got the ball, picked it up, and ran at the defender. Now, no matter what age you are, and granted, if you're 35, you don't want someone running at you who's got that much pace anyway. He goes off like the clappers. So he gets the ball at his feet and is going to run at a defender like Hamilton does and like Mitchell does, is why I'm crying out for Mitchell to start. He runs at players and he makes things happen and he can finish. Mm-hmm. So for me, he's not too young. And yeah, maybe if he gets bullied off and he does really badly and he doesn't cope with it, then we can say we've given him the opportunity. But for me, he's got to be on the bench a lot more than he has been, because he's a kid on fire. And I think while someone's in that vein of form, you shouldn't miss out on that. That's just my personal view, but I don't know how you feel, Sean.
Yeah, I think obviously you said Apter and Holmes. I think Apter's sort of the Apter's the guy that seems to be the number one pick out of the youth players for the manager anyway. Obviously, he had his appearance at Wigan, and we've signed Stuart Moore today, the goalkeeper. So that will, I presume, takes Jack Sims off the bench. You're going to have to put another youth player on the bench anyway. So you'd think either him or Nathan Shaw perhaps as well, because I've been a big fan of Nathan Shaw as well. He's come back from Fylde. But as you say, Tom, there's that sort of fearlessness to a young kid, and our game plan is all about that high energy, high intensity play. And if you've got 25 minutes to go and you still wanted to keep that up as we're starting to sort of slow down a bit and tire, then bringing on a young kid who's going to run their heart out seems like a no-brainer. I guess the only potential way you could probably think against that is that they won't be as sort of structured and sort of composed because they're wanting to impress. They might overdo it. They might I don't know, but they might overdo it. But generally speaking, I don't see why not. But I think for the youth team, it'd almost do them a favour for our season to sort of die out into a mid-table slump, and they'd probably get a run of games then. Whereas I think he's going to stick with tried and tested when the season's still live, and you can't really blame him for that because they have kind of worked this season. But as you say, Tom, they've got the ability there. It's not like it's just any youngster. These are top youngsters. Like, these are some of our best prospects that have come through. So I really don't see why you can't.
I completely agree, and I'll never blame Critchley for not starting him. But like you said, when's the right time to actually put him on the bench and chuck him on? I don't know, but if we're going to keep signing young players, I was about to say Mitchell. I think Mitchell's 24, but if you're going to sign sort of young sort of players at the club like Ellis Sims, when's the time to play Holmes and Apter and Shaw? Like, they're going to miss out eventually, and they'll eventually go to someone like Rangers when they sign Tony Weston from us. I know there's not much we could have done about that, but someone will pick them up and someone will then play them and they'll become incredible footballers. And I'm just a bit nervous with players like that we potentially will eventually miss our opportunity with them. But get them on the bench. There's enough spaces on the bench and it gives them that boost. But I don't know. I'm not the manager of Blackpool, so I remember Owen scoring quite a spectacular goal when he was quite young. So,
yeah, someone's just said, well, I was going to come in and say, kind of, if you're good enough, you're old enough to play, and that's what every week I think I go at my time at Fleetwood Donner. But something Joey Barton always used to say to the academy players, that if you keep proving yourself in games on the weekend, because he used to go and watch all the games before every home game before the first team home game, and he used to go and watch. And I think as a player, you up your game when he's there, and you know he's watching. You know the manager's going to take notes and maybe bring you forward to the first team training session, which must be a great experience or a great feeling for a young lad who's gone from all the way from grassroots, as Tim, well, my dad will say, that coached him on a Saturday morning, freezing cold, cut them all, and for him to be at Blackpool's amazing. But I do think there comes a time where you need to give him that chance. And look, if it doesn't come off, you go, right, let's go and work again hard and part of your game in the under-18s and come into the first team again at a later stage, pre-season maybe at this point. But I do think we've got to give them a chance and put them in there. I don't know. The only thing you can lose maybe is the game, and at this stage it's critical. But at the same time, the experiences that those players will get is invaluable in my experience. I don't know what your thoughts are.
It's the attack. Maybe this is quite a silly thing to say, but for me, as an attacker when you're young, it's a bit different to when you're a centre back and maybe haven't coped with those big strikers. But when you've got that fearlessness about you, you're not going to lose many games as a striker or attacker midfielder, specifically by yourself. And I think if he picks up the ball or gets played in down the wing, what's the difference in him running at a defender or running into the space than someone that we've signed, such as Virtue, playing as on right wing? He's just as effective or less effective in that position than someone like Apter or Shaw or someone would be when he's not built to do that job. And for me, Virtue isn't built to do that job. I'm not saying start him over him, it's just playing devil's advocate, but I think you have more an effective player, maybe even with half an hour to go, see what they can do. If it's 1-1 and you're not getting anything out of the game or you're not making things happen, you've got to start them, or you've got to sort of bring them on, in my opinion. But
just even going back to the Premier League, I know it's 10 years ago now, it's mad to think, but Matty Phillips, Wickham, League Two, not played a game, but comes in, no fear, starts running at Blackburn's experienced defenders, and he goes and bags a goal on his Blackpool debut. So it can happen, and careers can be made, and Phillips has gone on to have a great career, obviously, at QPR, and obviously now at West Brom. I'll maybe see him next season if we can go up. But again, those are examples, and I think someone put Bright Samuel in there as well. He popped through, and League Two maybe at that stage, or definitely got more games in League Two, should I say, Oliver? But it's a tough one, and we've got to trust the manager, haven't we, Sean, that he's going to make the right decision, knowing where his experience at Liverpool, that they haven't just thrown players in. I say that they threw Trent Alexander-Arnold into a Champions League qualifier, and look where he's gone to be. So it's tough, isn't it? But we've got, as fans, we've got to trust the coaching staff, haven't we?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see what sort of pathway they've been sold as well, because obviously, ultimately, you're looking at Asai Samuel, looking at Harrison Magahe, Dom Telford, Mark Warrington, those sort of players. Dion Charles as well for Accrington. Those sort of players are sort of left simply because there was no plan in place for them. There was no sort of idea of what we were doing with these players. There was nothing there for them to stay. So it'd be interesting to see what they're being told. Obviously, there's in the supporters meeting notes, there was Ewan Bange and Rob Apter and Brad Holmes are in first team training quite a lot. So whether it's next season that they've been told they'll come into the fold and play a certain amount of games or what have you, I don't know. But obviously Tony Weston got sold to Rangers. He obviously got that pathway there, but it'd be interesting to see what our plan is with these players now.
Yeah, definitely. And knowing Kieran and what he's done at Fleetwood and what he's going to do at Blackpool, I'm sure they'll have a plan in place. And I believe he gets on with Neil Critchley, which is a good sign. So fingers crossed that those two players and many more, should we say, get the chance in the Blackpool first team, whether it's this season or next season. I'm sure about it. But moving on, we've got a few more topics, just managers' interviews, what they've said, team selection and score predictions to finish off this week before Blackpool's game against Charlton at the weekend. We'll kick with Blackpool at the moment and go through. But this is what Neil Critchley had to say on the club's official website. He said things seem to be going against us in the period when we played Charlton earlier in the season, particularly as we played the majority of the match with 10 men. It was a real sickener to concede so late on after holding them at bay for a long period of time. But I think the players took a lot from that game. Charlton have quality, but have good form at the moment. Probably disagree with that, but we're going to have to play them at a similar level to what we played Portsmouth last weekend if we're going to get anything from this game. And Tom, I'll come to you for your reaction on what Neil Critchley had to say.
Yeah, I think I say the same every week. I think he speaks really well, and it's coming to fruition on the pitch as well. So it's much of a muchness for me. He's quite positive most of the time, and I think he's learning more about the game every single week that we play. So a few sort of vague comments in there, but for me, he's like I said, he speaks really well, and he always comes across. Sorry, he always comes across each week like he's learning something different and he's implementing that. So I think as much of the same there.
Yep, Sean, your thoughts to what Neil Critchley's had to say?
Yeah, obviously, as Tom says, it's sort of consistency now, isn't it? And it's having that extra game that we need. Like this is the time again where we tended to have dropped off, or we put in a poor performance when it was about to start kicking on again. So this one's a really big game for me, and I think he knows that himself, that keeping that momentum, especially after the postponement, is really vital for us. Yeah,
definitely. We'll go on to what Lee Bowyer had to say, the Charlton athletic manager, and he said he was frustrated after the game on Tuesday night, which we alluded to at the start of the show, losing at home to Burton by 2-1. But he said on their club official website, we're a good side, and we showed that in the first half on Tuesday. That's why it drives me crazy. It's why I see in training, but for some reason, we've stopped doing things on the pitch. We see players working day out, but and teams can't get near us. So why can't we do it on a consistent basis on the pitch? We lost on Tuesday, and it was nothing to do with the shape or anything. The second goal was lucky, but we have to maintain the way we start and take it through to the 90 minutes. Sean, you're giggling there, mate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's not the shape problem. That's
it's never the manager's fault, is it?
No.
But what do you think that when a manager's saying that he goes on to say maybe it's a confidence thing when we concede a goal? He even questions himself on that. He questions the interview at the stage, and he just says their goal is so avoidable. But when I've watched Charlton a few weeks ago at Fleetwood, they were trying to play out from the back. I don't think they've got the players to do that. They were chipping it into the full backs, wing backs, and making it tough for them. And when Fleetwood press them, and teams have done it in the past, they can get goals from them. And Burton did that on Tuesday night. So when you actually look at his comments in a bit more detail, as we just discussed, you were laughing about it, that he seems to say that something's just not ticking in terms of on the pitch. Is it that they can do it when no pressure's on them in training, which I can do a Maradona turn in training, but when it gets to a pitch, I can't do it. So is it just nerves? Do you think that there's more pressure with 3 points on the line, especially where they are in the league table?
No, I think sometimes with playing out from the back, a manager will want to play out from the back, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the players at your disposal to do it, then you need to compromise. And when you hear managers talking about, I don't really know what the thing is. Is it a confidence issue? I mean, the amount of times I've heard Neil Lennon say that this year, I think I'd probably spew up. So,
and he's gone anyway.
Yeah, but it's that sort of thing that I just think you don't really know what the answer is if you're talking like that. And I think if you're doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results, it's just not going to be the case at all. And I think, like you were saying, playing out from the back under pressure, of course, in training, you're going to have less intensity in training because you're not in a professional match. And if you're seeing it in training, but then it's not translating to the match, that's because the game plan you're putting into the match isn't fit for the intensity that you're playing at. It's needs to be changed and compromised. And clearly he doesn't want to do that, else he would front up and say it.
Yeah, Tom, what are your thoughts? I obviously want to get both views on this. Is he just making excuses, or is he protecting the players? Do you think that they've got a bad result there against a team that are struggling and afraid to play Blackpool, aren't they?
I think Sean summed that up perfectly. I've watched a few of his post-match press conferences, or I forgot the person who does his interviews, but anyway, he talks to them a bit pally-pally, and he's like, we were the better team, mate. We were the better team. We're just unlucky, and you can't keep saying you're unlucky, but I think when a manager comes out and go, no, it wasn't the shape, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, I think Sean's spot on. I think, does he know the team, or does he know the shape that is good enough for them to play? The weird thing is, they're third away from home in terms of form. So he clearly does know what works for them. Maybe is a away from home setup where he enjoys sort of attacking teams and playing against them. I don't know, but he must have the knowledge to understand sort of where it's going wrong. But yeah, a bit of a whirlwind sort of statement, really, isn't it? I think Critchley's always the reserve guy, and Bowyer's he does come across as not angry, but definitely passionate in terms of his post-match and pre-match sort of analysis. So we'll see tomorrow. I think if Critchley's calm and we play the team we play, which we'll come on to in a second, I think we've got the composure to deal with what they can give us if we do, and we don't change the teams dramatically, and we're very clinical with how we play and we're taking our chances. Then I think the pressure's all on them tomorrow, and we could see them crumble. But if we do change it, like we did against Ipswich, we could see another frustrating Saturday. So that's why I think tomorrow is really interesting and such a big opportunity. We go on to sort of teams. Sean, your changes for tomorrow, if any?
Yeah, for the Doncaster game, I wanted Virtue in instead of Ward. I think that was because Reece James at left back for Donny, he's sort of their main outlet. He was going to be bombing up and down the wings. I think Virtue matches that energy box to box, and I think he's good at covering that sort of area. Whereas in this game, I think it's about us being composed in the midfield, sort of blocking the passing lanes for Charlton. So if we keep that stern midfield block, then I don't think they're going to find a way through it. They need to get the passes through to their strikers. And if you've got Ward, he'll cover a lot of space and a lot of ground in that midfield area, and I think he'll cut off a lot of the play. And you've got Stewart and Dougal, who at the end of the day probably the best central midfield pairing in the division. So they're going to do that as well. I just think if you set up with that sort of structure, I don't see how teams have a way through, as they showed against Portsmouth.
Do you think Virtue offers more than Ward in terms of defending sort of the full-backs attacking, do you?
I think it was more pushing James back. I think Ward wouldn't be playing so high up the pitch as a right mid. I think he sort of sits a bit narrower and sort of allows Gabriel to take that space on the wing, whereas Virtue's a lot more sort of box to box down that wide area. He'll stay out wide and cover that space. So I think in certain games, Virtue can offer the energy that you need more, but I think Ward is a lot more of a tactical midfielder and a lot more intelligent in terms of his space and his awareness, so he doesn't have to do the running as much as Virtue does.
No, I think it's a fair shout. Sam, what do you think? Thoughts on the team? I know you didn't see the game against Portsmouth, but looking back on highlights and the team selection, what's your view on who should be starting?
I'm just looking at it now, to be fair. Like many people in the comments, I think you stick to a winning formula. Whether he would have changed it on Tuesday, we never actually got the team sheets due to the timing of obviously the decision to call the game off. But I just think when you're in that winning mentality and you've been away from home and you know players are going to fight for you and put bodies on the line, which they have done, I don't see why he would change it. I think if he is going to make a change, some people are saying that Medine isn't fit yet, which again, you stick with Sims really. But if he is, you maybe do switch it up top and bring Sims on with maybe 25, 30 minutes to go just to give you a fresher pair of legs, or bring Medine on for the last 30 minutes if he's fit enough. But I agree with Sean. I think the game's going to be won in midfield tomorrow in terms of can you stop Darren Prattley on the ball if he plays. They've got some great players looking to get down the wings in terms of Chris Gunter, who I alluded to. But again, that midfield, if you can win that battle and Yates can really get up against Oshalaja there, tall centre half in the heart of the three at the back, then I do fancy us. But Ballard's a huge player for us, and he guides Husband through the games as much as Husband does the talking away from that. I think Husband's it's not a familiar position for him. So yeah, I'm going to go with everyone else and say, well, most people, and say that the same 11 from Portsmouth, but just due to the fact that they've grinded out a result there, that they've gone away from home and played out the sock. So hopefully the same again tomorrow.
Yeah, my only change if Medine's fit is he comes straight in for Sims. I think he's got as we all know, the knowledge and the experience to deal with those centre-backs. And Sims, I think, will be in alive tomorrow because he didn't make... I don't know, Sean, again, might disagree with me, but I didn't think he changed the game too much against Portsmouth. He helped the structure, but he didn't do anything individually, which really hurt those Portsmouth defenders. And, he came off at half-time, and I think Mitchell had a much bigger impact on the game. So do you bring Mitchell in for Sims and then put Kai up top? Or just behind, I don't know. Maybe give Sims free roam to run. Mitchell free roam to sort of run at the defenders and be a bit more direct than Kai is, and then give Kai his more natural position, as Phil would say, and let him have more of an impact there. But just touching upon Kai, get your thoughts in the chat as well as your score predictions. Does everyone want to see Kai sort of continue in his position, or would you like to see him change position? But for me, he's much more of a bigger impact when he did move into the middle like he did on Saturday. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's about right in terms of he's a number 10. I think because he's good at drifting in the space and in the sort of. I think he can be quite isolated out wide if you've got a full back and a central midfielder that are sort of pulling across. He does tend to be doubled up on quite a lot in terms of central midfielders coming across to narrow the space on him. I think that he works best when he's got the whole range of the pitch to sort of use to his advantage. And as I say, he's not a runner. He's never going to be a runner because he thrives off finding the space by just sort of walking his way into it. And he is clever like that, but that's what a number 10 does. And he's not playing as a number 10. And I think he's not freed up enough. He's got too much defensive responsibility in that setup where he is. So I think that doesn't help either.
Sam?
I actually forgot what the question was, to be honest. I'm daydreaming. I'm not going to lie to you.
I must have given a brilliant answer then. Yeah.
I actually can't remember, to be fair. I was too busy daydreaming and making sure comments were lined up. But if you're on about Kai, which I think it was, that he's a player that... is that Northampton? Did he get the first against Northampton, was it? Is it that game or Rochdale? Which one was it he scored?
Northampton, because I think that was when he had that. Was it Northampton or Rochdale?
What? Yeah, was it Rochdale? Well, Rochdale. Sorry, yeah.
Game was halves.
Yeah, so games just come thick and fast as just forget. But that game, that's the only kind of I've seen him in recently, and he just looked up for it. And I think certain players, if they're up for it during a warm up or in the first 5 minutes of the game. And for him, he was getting on the ball, he was running at players, and then get a few bits of skill and trickery on the left wing to put some balls in the box, which and his delivery as well. I think was it a corner and maybe a set piece where Yates was just offside. He put in that in. So he's a player that thrives off confidence. And for me, I still don't think he knows where his best position is, and that doesn't help the manager when it comes to selecting a team. But he does have that ability to unlock a defence, in my opinion, and he's going to be. Whether he's still here in 12 months' time, I don't know, because he's been around for 2 years ago. He's been at the club 2 years now, hasn't he? But I hope he stays. He's a great talent, and obviously you don't come through the Crystal Palace youth ranks and play games for them if you're not good enough because of the highly rated system they've got. So he's definitely got the talent, as we've seen throughout his time in a tangerine shirt. It's more the fact that can he just be more consistent, and I think his fans saw that and him putting more effort in like he has done recently. I don't see why he can't be a starter for Blackpool in every game.
Yeah, I think with Kai as well, it's how many games can you not really have an impact before you become a player that's not worth having in the side. I think we know that his talent on his day is championship quality, and at the end of the day, if he performed every other game like we know he can do, then he wouldn't be with us. So it's kind of like, how many off games do you give him for those moments? So obviously CJ Hamilton's probably a 1 in 3 player, let's say. Yeah. Kakai's probably a 1 in 6 at the moment. What are you wanting him to come? But you probably wanting a 1 in 3, 1 in 4 out of him for him to sort of pay dividends to have him in the team in the structure the whole time. Because if he's not performing for 7, 8 games, then that's too long of a spell for you to not be doing what you need to do in that side.
I think we've got to also understand. Sorry, Tom, I'll come to you. That they're in League One for a reason, and that the reason is consistency, isn't it? That if you are consistent in 1 every 2 games, you're probably at the level of a championship player. Where I think if you get towards the 1 in 3 to 4 games, then actually clubs are going to get sick of you and fans at that level because they know what's at stake. You could be relegated and find it hard, like Sunderland, Portsmouth, Charlton. They've been a bit of a yo-yo club in recent years. So to get that consistency level and be at the level maybe he wants to be, I think being under certain managers, Calderwood, in my opinion, is great for him, really, that if he does slack off, get on his back, tell him that he needs to work harder because he has that player. He has that kind of ability for me to be in the top end of a championship club, but it's that work rate and mentality for me that just lets him down. But that's not a criticism in terms of where he can be. It's just maybe something he can work on. But sorry, Tom, I'll let you come in now.
No, I just touch upon Sean's point. I think how many games do you give him before he gets dropped? And there was 2 things I want to say. Did he get dropped when we were supposed to play It was a
The
game
Burton one.
Burton, wasn't it? Yeah, the first.
I think so. Yeah.
And was he dropped, or did Mitchell and him start? But I'm pretty sure Mitchell started over him. I think that was funnily enough the game where Critchley said, "I'm going to try Mitchell over him," and then he reverted back to playing Sully in the next game. So it's a bit of a weird decision, but that just shows you maybe that Critchley is looking game on game and not worrying about sort of playing the same players every single week. So it's a really good point, and I think he was at that point of enough's enough now. He's not tracking back. He's being a bit lazy. And that game that he came back on, he started to perform. So credit to him. And if he is starting to find his feet a bit more and find his confidence back, it's only going to be good for Blackpool.
Yeah, it certainly is. And we'll see if he gets in the starting 11 tomorrow come 2:00 when Blackpool will announce their starting 11 for the game away at Charlton. The final section before we pack our bags and say goodnight, it was score predictions as we've seen on the screen. We'll go through a few comments before going to our guest or panel this evening. But Gareth White, he says Charlton 1, Blackpool 3. That would be a great result. Righty's also predicted a Blackpool win. He's gone for 2-1 to the Tangerine. And Steve, he says it's got to be a 2-0 win to the mighty Tangerine Wizards tomorrow. Sean, I'll come to you first. Your score predictions and goal scorers for the Seasiders.
I think it's going to be a 2-1 that we'll win tomorrow. I think we will concede just because Charlton are scoring a fair amount of goals in games. But I think you're going to say your Yates, aren't you? Yates is going to be the difference, I think, tomorrow. So I'll give you Yates double.
Tom, I'll come to you next. We need to get one right, don't we? At least 1 week. We've been close. We've been very close, been a goal out. But do you think Blackpool will go there and pick up all 3 points and kind of get away from that voodoo of not having back-to-back away wins?
We should, and providing, I think if he makes an unchanged side, maybe Medine comes in, we should have enough to deal with it. And that's the reason I'm going to go for a 2-1 as well. My head says 1-1, but my heart says we're gonna go out and kick on tomorrow and get that winner. And I think if Medine starts, we're going to have plenty to beat them. And if he doesn't, then it's going to be a much more tighter affair. I'm going to say we're going to go 2-0 up. And I fancy us to score a penalty, to be specific.
Wow, interesting. I'm going to go for a 2-2. I think their defence, from what I saw against Fleetwood, wasn't great. If you can get at them, that's great. But I do think they've got a bit of power up top with Jaden Stockley and that little bit of quality to break a back line down. And whether Husband and Ballard are up for the fight tomorrow, to me, that's going to be a deciding factor. I'm going to go, we'll pick up a point in a 2-2 draw. Christian, he's more positive than me. He says Charlton 0, Blackpool 2. Plenty of comments about Kai. I'll come back to that before we leave. Richard, he's got a comment in saying 4-0 to the Seasiders. Yates to get 2. Kai and Ward. Not normal for Tim to be positive, but he says a 2-0 win for Blackpool. Oliver Heaton. Sorry, my screen's really small. He says 2-1 to Blackpool. Ray Gregson, he also says 2-1 to Blackpool. Mick, 3-1 Blackpool. We will break the 75-76 season and continue our good form. I've just been commenting here who actually plays former players, ex-players. I've actually missed that off the sheet this time. So I don't know if anyone can quickly think of anyone whilst we kind of go back on some things, but it'd be interesting to see. I'm trying to think now. That's got me thinking. Sorry, Christian. We normally do this section. He's played for both teams that we can think of.
Someone save us in the chat.
Yeah, someone save us. But just going through some of the comments before fans save us regarding the Kai situation. Steve, what we were talking about before, where they can be consistent and really push on. He says Kai looked very good in the middle on Saturday. Again, I didn't watch the game, so I can't really comment on that, but the two of you guys seem to suggest that. And then he said, I thought he started all right against Portsmouth, but after half an hour at the midfield was a bit too loose. Dougal's been playing passes right to the other team and trying to overcomplicate it. But again, and Gareth says, give Kai a bit of a free roll. And this is all important. I've got a new comment coming in. Let's see if it saves us.
Jason Ewell.
Jason Ewell, I love it, Sean. You've saved us, mate. But also, Tom, he said, oh no, wrong. Is it the right one? Kai play for Charlton? I meant to get the other one up, to be fair, but Interesting. Kai. We've also got Andy Reid. Andy Reid, what a player he was for Blackpool. We've also got Alex Dyer. Must maybe before my time, not too sure. If anyone can come through. Christian also says Phil Ferns.
There's a reason Christian wanted this. He's named about 7.
keep them coming, Christian. It's great. And one player that I think we can all maybe come in here. I'll start off with it's Joe Shelby. Obviously gone from Charlton to Liverpool for a big fee and came to Blackpool. It was only a kind of a short loan spell, really. But that game, I think he scored in his debut, didn't he? Or he scored a free kick from yards out, 30, 40 yards. And that game against Leeds, which we'll all remember how his part in that game. I think he scored a penalty past Rachubka in the first half. And what a player he was, Tom, really, for Blackpool, despite it being a short loan spell.
Yeah, head and shoulders above most players on the pitch when he played, and he still shows spells of that in a pretty poor Newcastle side at the moment. So we've been blessed with some amazing loan players in the past, and he's certainly one of them.
Yeah, Sean, just a comment on Joe Shelby.
Yeah, his range of passing was immense. Like, you look at Charlie Adams' range of passing, I think Shelby was right up there competing with him as well. He's a brilliant player.
Someone's just said a trialist. I'm sure there's one in Scotland, but I could have been our saviour, couldn't it? A trialist playing for both teams. But Ricardo Fuller, I think he means Ricardo Fuller does John Scott. Yeah. So I just mainly know him from the Stoke City days, but wasn't sure about Charlton. So well done, John, if you've obviously got that one right.
Rieger as well, manager.
Yeah, Josie. Again, another person. We'll have to get him on. Try and get him on the podcast, won't we? That'd be interesting. Tell us about what it was like your tenure at Blackpool. I'll have to sort that. But yeah, cheers for saving us there. We'll end it on that one. It's a normal topic we do. So, Christian, I'm sorry you did all your homework and gave us 4, but great to be reminded. But we'll end it there as we're coming to just an hour and 15 of the show. But Tom, once again, great to have you with us. I know it's been a long day and a long week for you at work, but I appreciate all the hard work that goes into the show, and fingers crossed it can all be paid off for Blackpool getting 3 points tomorrow.
You're welcome. Good evening.
Good evening, indeed. And Sean, we'll kick him off now. That's it. And Sean, a pleasure to have you on the Seasiders podcast as well. I'll hopefully try and get you on. I feel mean, actually. He's got to come back in, hasn't he? Again, Sean, it's been great to have you on. Of your insight into both clubs, and like I said, I think all Blackpool fans would wish you all the best in your kind of journey in the media world. And I'm sure I'll see you at a few Blackpool games and stuff going in the future. So it'll be, again, wish you all the best with that, and we'll definitely get you back on the podcast.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers for that. I can't wait for a Highbury tomorrow.
I'll see you there, actually. We'll see you there. We can talk tangerine in front of all the cods. Just before we finish, again, we'll finish with all the comments. But again, huge thank you to everyone who's tuned in this evening. It's been great to have you all on the Seasiders podcast. I know there's so many competition these days. It's we've got to stay above the rest, haven't we? But from all of us, we're going to say good night. But it's been great to have you. If you're on YouTube or Twitter, Facebook, remember to hit that follow button and make sure you subscribe to the channel, because anything you do to push us up the YouTube rankings, that will be fantastic, and you'll be notified with any live shows that go on. So it's definitely worth doing. But this podcast will be back tomorrow, I believe, around 6 p.m. for the match reaction show. So if you're available, do stay tuned for that one and have your say. Hopefully your say on Blackpool picking up all the points. But from us on the Seasiders podcast, it's good night.